All right, so good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining. So this is going to be recorded, and I know it's going to be shared through multiple channels on a go-forward basis, and I really appreciate the opportunity to continue to partner with Hope for the Warriors. So Brian, Christy, Michelle, and Taylor, thank you for that. I know when we put this deck together collectively, all of us enjoyed the content, and we even said this is really, really good content. So I appreciate everyone's participation, and especially yours on the back end, being our producer and engineer and tech person and everything else associated with making today a successful workshop. So with that, Brian, I don't know if you had opening comments you wanted to throw out there.
Sorry, I was looking for my mic. So I just want to introduce the team real quick. At Hope for the Warriors, we've sort of developed our career program over time, and it seems to get more robust and better situated for what we do with helping clients over the years. And with that, it used to just be me, and then Christy ended up coming along, and then Michelle, and then now Taylor, and we're all certified career coaches through Professional Writers Association, and really, as a team collectively, and what we can bring to the table as career coaches has really grown. A lot of things that we do, when you're looking within the veteran and military spouse community, trying to connect folks to actual employment becomes very difficult. Mm-hmm. And we've got a great team that doesn't just look for those opportunities to connect people to employment, but show them how to walk the path. Mm-hmm. And, really help build that resiliency and helping them create their own career campaign. And I think that's very important, because there's a lot of stress and anxiety that come with searching for a position, searching for employment. And when you look at that big picture, Christy, Michelle, and Taylor and I, we really like to take that kind of weight on our shoulders. So I just wanted to take a minute and talk about them as being a great team. And we really appreciate Robert Half and you guys joining us today for this event. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. And we have a motto at Robert Half, and we are in a unique position at Robert Half, being in the business that we're in, professional staffing services, to say more than thank you to our military veterans, right? By supporting you, Brian, and Hope for the Warriors endeavors that you highlighted. So we appreciate the partnership. Thank you very much. As we go through today, just a couple of housekeeping items that we wanted to cover. On Teams, right, we're going to ask for the audience participation. You can either unmute and ask your questions and or give your comments, or you can use the react buttons on the top of the toolbar. Thumbs up, heart, clap, and or ask questions, right? We will also throw some polls out there and maybe ask for reactions as we go through the content, because we do want your feedback. Your feedback is extremely important for a few reasons. So the content resonates, but also to tweak on a go-forward basis. So any and every participation is greatly, greatly appreciated. In putting this together, Christy, you actually highlighted this, right? And we're just going to throw up a quick poll in Teams right now. And I just thought, Christy, the content and the poll that you came up with was amazing. So do you want to quickly highlight that?
Absolutely. Thank you. So obviously today we're going to be focusing on how to translate your military experience into your resume, and how do you talk about your military experience also whenever you're in a job interview. So the poll question that you're going to see first is, what percentage of veterans feel that they have trouble translating their military experience on their resume?
So we can go through a round robin if individuals are on their cell or maybe having a problem clicking in, but I just thought that was interesting, right? So what percentage of veterans have a challenge translating their military experience? Is it 45%, 25%, 70%, or 90%? Christy, what's the right one?
70%. So if
70.
so if you find yourself a part of that 70%, know that you're not alone. And that's why, today's session is going to be extremely important. But on the other side of things,
We're going
the
to the employer side.
yes, on the employer side, the next poll question is, what percentage of employers have trouble understanding military service on a resume? So take your best guess. Is it 60%, 30%, 95, or 12%?
Any takers on that one?
Any guesses?
I'm going
Try
to tell you
95.
that I'm going to tell you that I honestly thought it was 95%, Rich.
You know what? I'm with you too. Christy, what's the number?
It is 60%. And this statistic came from the SHRM Foundation, which is a major certification board for HR professionals. But it's estimated that 60% of employers. So obviously there is a disconnect between your service and what is on your resume from an understanding perspective of how do we talk about it, but also how do individuals perceive it whenever they are reviewing your resume. So hopefully today, as we go through all of our content, we will be able to kind of bridge that gap or clear some misconceptions or give some additional ideas as to how you can communicate your service in a more transparent way on your resume and in job interviews.
And here's what I would say to that point, and we deal with employers all day long. I honestly believe that employers are downplaying that big time. I think it's 95% or higher, Brian. So I'm in your camp 100%.
I'll at least say this, when you think about that number and it being over 50%, that says a lot about the workforce. I mean, even that it's not as high as we originally expected it to be, that's still pretty significant. I mean, when you talk about, what small percentage of veterans are out there and looking for work, and over half of the employer population does not really understand that translation, that's a big deal.
That's a valid point. Very valid. Very valid. So today's session is really focused on transitioning military experience into civilian experience, right? So I want everybody to think about a time, or a time where you had to, I guess, adapt to a significant change at work. So think about that for a second, right? And if you're on the military end, it probably sounds something like this, and I'm just going to read it out for you. In the military, I was part of a team assigned to a mission that required us to adapt quickly to changing conditions. We were initially prepared for one type of operation, but due to unforeseen circumstances, our mission parameters changed drastically. And I'm sure that's happened numerous times, right? I had to quickly learn new procedures, adapt to new equipment, and work closely with my team to ensure we met our objectives. This experience taught me the importance of adaptability, rapid learning, and cohesive teamwork, skills that are crucial in any fast-paced operational environment. Huge responsibility, and I agree wholeheartedly. And by the way, we pull that from military veterans. How do you translate something like that into a civilian response on your resume, or even in a conversation? Probably goes something like this. In my previous job, I was part of a team working on a project that required us to adapt quickly to changing conditions. We were initially prepared for one type of task, but due to unforeseen circumstances, our project requirements changed drastically. I had to quickly learn new procedures, adapt to different tools, and collaborate closely with my team to ensure we met our goals. This experience taught me the importance of flexibility, quick learning, and effective teamwork, skills that are essential in any dynamic work environment. Here's what I would tell you being a non-military individual. I deal with that every single day. I deal with clients who deals with that every single day with their teams. I deal with employees at all levels that deals with that, right? And in thinking about the translation, I wanted to highlight, and you'll hear me say this a few times throughout, today's workshop. There are tools out there that you can use to help you translate, okay? Before I give you those tools, I want you to really think about something, and I hope it resonates with you. As you use these tools, it is only as a guide. You then need to tweak it to make sure it's your words, number one, right? Don't have it be robotic. Number two, don't embellish on it. Don't fabricate anything because that only comes back to haunt you. Okay, so that's extremely, extremely, extremely important. Resources like a chat GPT, that's one that I immediately think of, right? It could be Copilot, if you're familiar with that, or it could be something like a Google Gemini, right? So again, those are tools and resources that you can use to help in the translation. But again, use it as a guide only. So let's go to translation and translation strategies. So give me a thumbs up with this one, okay? So the first thing, so think about this for a second. The first thing that employers see is your resume, right? So here's the thumbs up or thumbs down. If you've ever worked on modifying or creating a resume to use for civilian jobs, thumbs up, right? I think we've all done that, civilian or military, okay? Military resumes, as we've seen in just the example that I gave, and even the polls that we did, military resumes often contain specialized terminology that may not be familiar to civilian employers. I think that 60% is way low. I'm of the mindset it's 95 or higher. So the answer to that is yes. What has been the most challenging part for you? My guess is it's translating that, right? And translating that information. So let's talk about a few ways where you can use to adapt to a resume, right? And translating that experience. First of all, identify military terms. That's easy. You all know what those terms are without question. So list military specific terms and acronyms on a clean sheet of paper, not on your resume, okay? Find civilian equivalents, and I highlighted the resources that you can use to research and replace with civilian-friendly language, okay? So for example, Brian, we were chatting the other day, and you mentioned an acronym, NCOIC. And when you mentioned that, my question to you was, Brian, can you please tell me what that is?
Yeah, and when I rattled it off, non-commissioned officer in charge, I had a pretty surprised reaction from you, and it's one of those things that we use commonly, and a lot of people don't realize that, and a lot of times it can make it into a resume. But your translation and how you define that, I'll let you continue.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically a team leader or supervisor.
Exactly.
Is what we came up with, right? So again, some of the best practices, identify your military terms, clear sheet of paper, find a civilian equivalent using the resources or other, and then simplifying it. Simplify descriptions. Describe your roles and responsibilities in simple, straightforward language that highlights your skills and achievements. That is the recommendation and best practice when you're thinking about translating your experience. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about that, and we'll show some examples. So on the next slide, you will see a military skill, led a platoon of 30 soldiers. Okay, civilian translation, managed a team of 30 personnel, ensuring operational efficiency and team cohesion. Here's another one, military skill, conducted reconnaissance missions, civilian translation, performed data collection and analysis to inform strategic decisions. Again, simple translations, okay?
So, Rich, if I
Yeah,
could,
go ahead.
just to sort of caveat off of, led a platoon of 30 soldiers. And when we talk about the non-commissioned officer in charge. So, I like to think of it as sort of three levels. You've got like your non-commissioned officer in charge, which would be something like that, like a platoon leader. And then you've got staff NCOIC, which is staff non-commissioned officer in charge, and then OIC, officer in charge. Well, when you think about those in civilian related terms, when you're thinking about a business and level of leadership, you've got sort of your junior leadership with your NCOIC. You've got your mid-level leadership that you should be applying for as your staff NCOIC, and then your officers, OICs, are your senior leadership within those types of organizations.
Yep, 100%. And Brian, another thing, and just listening to you that I wanted to throw out is flexibility as well, right? And being flexible in terms of, what you want to consider as a point of entry, what opportunity do you want to consider that aligns with what you want to do, right? You may not get to that point from day one, but make sure that it's at least a stepping stone to get to that point. When we continue to talk about transferable experience, right? One of the things, and I'm speaking from an employer perspective, you will find that much of the experience you gained in your military career is highly valuable to civilian jobs, highly valuable. And some of those responsibilities transfer over 100%. Some of those responsibilities, you have to translate it into civilian terms, as we highlighted before. I will tell you on this slide with leadership and right, technical skills, problem solving and adaptability and communication skills, those are 100% transferable. So let's start with leadership and management. As you're building out your resume, if you were in a leadership or management position, emphasize your experience in leading teams, managing projects, and making strategic decisions. That's what businesses do all day long. Doesn't matter what business you're in. That is what they do. Technical skills. Highlight any technical expertise, such as IT skills, 100% transferable, right? Mechanical knowledge, just the aptitude in critical thinking, that's transferable. Or proficiency with specific tools and software, being able to adapt, transferable. Problem solving and adaptability. Showcase your ability to handle complex situations, 100% adaptable. I start my day with thinking on my way to work, here are some of the things I want to accomplish. The minute I sit at my desk, everything gets turned upside down, okay? And I have to adapt on how I go about participating and solving and salvaging my day and working with individuals, right? So adapting to changing environments, 100% transferable. And communication skills, right? Stress your ability to communicate effectively, verbally and in writing with diverse groups under pressure. Extremely, extremely, extremely transferable. As when content was being built here, I said to myself, and Brian, and Christy, we had this conversation. This is everything we do. This is everything so far that employers ask for. So again, make sure that you are planned and make sure that you're using and doing your research and translating it into language that civilians like myself and others can understand and see that it's extremely valuable. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So now that we've talked through adapting, just the content of your resume, right, and how to put that information together, The final step now is refining the structure of the information on your resume. Simply because the format of a military resume could be different than your typical civilian layout, right? So let's talk about a typical civilian layout. Professional summary. Start with a concise summary that highlights your key qualification and career goals. Okay. Chronological format. Use a reverse chronological format, meaning listing your most recent experience first on your resume. Clear sections. Divide your resume into clear sections such as education, experience, skills, and then certification. This is an extremely important one, which is number 4, quantity achievements. Employers want to know what you can do for them. So use numbers and metrics to qualify your achievements. Example, led a team of 20 personnel. Reduce operational expenses by 15%. Right? Those are extremely important. So I would use that. Tailor to job descriptions. Now, customize your resume for each job application to the best of your ability. But remember, I said earlier on, do not embellish, do not fabricate, because that will 100% come back to haunt you. As you're doing it, ensure it aligns with just specific requirements and keywords of the job posting. Use ChatGPT as a guide and a guide only. Then translate into your own words. Why do I say that? Because when you get that job, your employer will quickly notice if you've used and embellished using ChatGPT or if you put it in your own words. So please, I can't stress that enough, okay? And I know there's some thoughts and questions in the chat, and you know, we'll certainly get to those as well. But as we go on, let's talk a little bit more about, you know, strategies that you can leverage to revise your resume and help you throughout the interview process. Okay. You'll want to be able to express your experience in terms that resonate with civilian hiring managers, meaning people like myself. Okay. Show of hands. How many of you have interviewed for a civilian job? And again, I'm going through this because all of us have, right? I mean, when you think about it, right? During these conversations, you have an opportunity to really highlight how your experience can bring value to the role you are targeting. And it's a conversation. I know many of us go into interviews, myself included, right? Being nervous, being jittery. Understand that it is a conversation. Now, that is easier said than done. And practice in front of a mirror, practice with, you know, individuals that you trust, but practice and be prepared. There's a question, Lisa. I think your hand is raised, right? Do you have a question?
Leslie, and no, and I thought you said
I'm sorry, Leslie.
raise your hand if you applied for civilian job.
I'm sorry.
We just left our hands up. Sorry, Rich.
No, hey, Brian, you know what? I'm getting used to Teams as well, so no problem there. And I'm sorry, Leslie. I mentioned Lisa. I turned my camera off because I'm navigating through multiple streams, so I apologize for that. Okay, so let's go through, and I lost my.
So while Rich is looking, I just wanted to let y'all know that I decided to start popping some things in the chat, just a caveat off of what Rich is saying, so I don't continue to interrupt him because I have a tendency to do that.
No. I lost my screen here for a second. Oh no, here we go. I found it. Christy, you were having that same. We were talking about that this morning.
I get lost in Teams.
Right? Like, how do you get off and get back in? See?
It's like
Silly
a
me.
maze.
Crazy. It's crazy. Leadership. Emphasize this. We've spoken about this, but emphasize decision-making, team management, and strategic planning. Right? Logistics, which was the next one up. Highlight supply chain management, resource allocation, and efficiency. Again, skills that are highly in demand today than ever before. Operations, focus on project management, process improvement, and operational excellence. Again, extremely, extremely, extremely important. So with that, let's look at some scenarios to practice framing experiences in a way that will resonate with hiring managers or recruiters. And you'll hear me, in fact, I'm just going to read through it because in reading through it, it was so compelling. So in leadership, here's a military version that is out there. As a squad leader, I was responsible for training, welfare, and discipline of 12 soldiers. I ensured mission readiness, conducted performance evaluations, and maintained accountability for equipment and personnel. I also coordinated with higher command and other units to execute operations. By the way, that is an extremely, extremely important role with the highest sense of accountability. Okay. So I commend those of you in a leadership military role. Civilian translation goes something like this. In my leadership role, I managed a team of 12 individuals, overseeing their professional development, performance, and well-being. I was responsible for ensuring our team was fully prepared to meet organizational goals, including training, logistics, and operational planning. I regularly evaluated team members, provided mentorship, and coordinated with other departments to ensure smooth execution of projects and initiatives. I also managed resources and maintained accountability for high-value equipment. Again, simple language that resonates and can be used in your summary on your resume, okay? If we go to logistics, probably sounds something like this, the military version.
Mitch, before you go on
Go
to
ahead.
logistics,
Yes.
we got a couple questions, both from Leslie and Maria.
Okay.
So my question might be able to be answered later, I'm going to say. And I just want to clarify, this was talking about translating your military competencies into civilians on your resume. But then if you get past that point and you get to the interview, I think there's another challenge there. So maybe you get into it later, or that might be another course. So I'll let Maria go over, but my experience has been when you're giving your examples in the military, even if the soft skills are the same, people still don't get it, and they look at you with a blank stare at the types of things that you did, you know.
Mhm.
And then you might convert into your military language there because it's comfortable. But
Mhm.
I'll let Maria go.
So Leslie, before Maria goes, we'll cover components of what you highlighted as we go through the content today. But I also want to come back to when you interview and the blank stares, right? Because that is where it becomes conversational, or at least you have the opportunity for it to become conversational. And what do I mean by that? With the blank stare, you have an opportunity to ask the interviewer, based on the conversation today, are there areas that I can expand on? Are there areas that, you know, from my experience that's probably unclear that, again, I can expand on? So there are moments in time during the interview process where you can bring that back if that is your feeling. But I want to cover it at the end if we have a few more minutes, okay?
Yeah, yes, that's what I was thinking. I don't want to get you off track.
No worries. Again, this is what I highlighted today, right? And the ability to adapt. We're adapting now. Maria, you had a question?
Hi, yes. My question is, and it's somewhat related to what was just mentioned, but you mentioned on the previous slide that essentially we want to speak to the translatable skills and attributes that are in demand today that maybe were not in the past. or that these are the things that are in high demand today that maybe were not as much in the past. If you could possibly, as we're going through, highlight or touch on why these things are now more in demand than they previously were, or what about these skill sets or attributes is in demand in what areas, or maybe at what levels, whether it be entry, intermediate, more executive or senior levels, so that it's clear, because I think it's important that we know how to market ourselves in what areas. A lot of us, I think, are pretty clear that we do so much in such a short period of time.
Mhm.
At least one of the difficulties I often have is pinpointing what info to cut out and what I want to focus on. Even if I know what I want to do at a particular juncture, there's just too much to roll up into one job. It's so broad sometimes. So when you mentioned the blank stares, one thing that I've come to realize from both a hiring manager perspective and then on the other end of things as a person being interviewed, I just have to put that in the back of my head and not even worry about the blank stares, because oftentimes it's really just being self-conscious. You want the job, you don't know what they're thinking about you. It's kind of like when you're 10 years old and you're walking across your fifth grade, graduation. You think everybody's staring at you. Oftentimes they're really just being professional, and they're not thinking any more beyond that. They're trying not to give you any kind of a signal one way or another that's going to make you think you got it or you don't, or they have to be neutral to all the people that come in. And they want to keep it that way so that there's no room for grievances at the end of the process. So if you think they are giving you that you're an idiot look, it's probably just you're nervous because this is important to you.
Yeah. So, great question, great insight, great content from the both of you. So here's what I would say. And so in my opinion, veterans bring a lot to the table. Okay. And what I should have clarified at the beginning, even though you bring a lot, and yes, this workshop is how you translate what you've done for the country in civilian terms, use it sparingly as well. So what do I mean by that? When you think about putting together your resume, right, it has to be clear, concise with your summary of what you want to do. When you think about applying to a posting that aligns with that. So now you have a determination, okay, you know what? Based on what I am looking for, here are the positions that I am going to target that aligns with that, right? So you've made that decision, you're at that point. Then you have to say, okay, well, based on all of my experience that I've translated into civilian terms, what's relevant to the job, right? And then this is what I highlighted at the beginning on tailoring the resume, but without embellishing, right? And without fabricating. Then you tailor it to the job, okay? Now, what I would also say, and depending on who you speak to, cover letters are in, cover letters are out. I'm of the mindset of a summary. Why are you the best person for this job? Or why do you think you are a good fit for this job? This is an opportunity when you're submitting that tailored resume to then write a brief summary of why you are. And that is where you can use a bit more of your experience that aligns with it. And some of the tools that I highlighted in translating that. So ChatGPT is a good tool to help filling the gaps from what experience you have that is relevant to the job. It'll help you translate that. Okay. So again, that is more of a science behind it. When I highlighted jobs or skills or functions that's in demand from the previous slide, leadership skills are always in demand, regardless of the level of position that you're interviewing for. It could be entry level. Entry level requires leadership. It's how you carry about yourself, right? How you work with others. What is your brand within your professional brand within that organization? Obviously, the higher the leadership roles are, the more experience are required and the more optics you're going to have on it. Logistics I highlighted because supply chain today, especially with all of the tariff implications that's happening and with COVID being, 4 years ago, maybe 5, right? Or coming out of COVID, there were huge supply chain hiccups, deficiencies, so on and so forth. So supply chain today is extremely important. And supply chain experience are in high demand. So I think there are opportunities or moments in time where one skill set can be more in demand than others, right? And other times. So that's what I highlighted. But listening to you, Maria, as well as Leslie, I would say certainly tailor the resume, use your experience sparingly, because at some point you don't want to give so much information that it becomes confusing, no matter if it's in civilian terms or not. If that happens, your resume is overlooked and or passed on, right? So I hope I'm making sense there. And then with the blind stares and the interview, actually talking to someone, we will get to that very shortly. And I'll give you some best practices there as well. Make sense? Okay.
Yes,
So
thank you very much.
no, you're welcome. You're welcome. So as we go through this, and we highlighted the leadership piece, now we're the logistics piece, and I'll put it up and I'll read through it as well from my big screen over here. So here's a military version. I managed supply chain operations for a company-sized element, ensuring timely procurement, distribution, and accountability of equipment, ammunition, and supplies. I coordinated transportation, maintained inventory records, and ensured compliance with regulation and readiness standards. The civilian version of that sounds something like this. I was responsible for overseeing logistics and supply chain operations for a team of X amount of people. I just put in 100 personnel here. This included managing inventory, coordinating and procurement and distribution of essential equipment and materials, so almost 100% transferable, right? And ensuring everything was delivered on time and within regulatory guidelines. I also handled transportation logistics, maintained accurate records, and implemented systems to track and improve supply chain efficiency and accountability. That accountability is replicated on both because that reduces theft and everything else. So if you were in a logistics position, you can translate almost 100% of it into a logistics role on the civilian side. As we go through this, the next one up, operations. Right, and on the military side, it probably sounds something like this. I was responsible for planning, coordinating, and executing daily operations for a battalion. Huge responsibility. This included managing training schedules, mission planning, resource allocation, and ensuring operational readiness. I worked closely with leadership to align operations with strategic objectives and adapt plans as needed. Again, the civilian version probably goes something like this. I managed day-to-day operations for a large team, ensuring that all activities were aligned with organizational goals and executed efficiently. This included developing and coordinating schedules, allocating resources, overseeing project timelines, and ensuring compliance with policies and procedures. I collaborated with senior leadership to plan and adjust operations based on changing priorities. And I played a key role in maintaining team readiness and performance. You're not embellishing, we're not fabricating. All we're doing is translating into civilian terms. Okay? The other one on training, I believe we have one on difficult conversations, but let's go with the training. Extremely important, right? Leading by example. So the military version, again, goes like this. I developed and conducted training programs for my unit to ensure mission readiness. This included physical fitness, weapons qualification, tactical drills, and compliance with standard operating procedures. I also tracked progress, evaluated performance, and adjusted training plans as needed. Question to basically everybody on the call, with the exception of you and myself, and I don't want to speak on your behalf, but I certainly wasn't in the military. Does that resonate? Is that a function that you're familiar with in some fashion? The reason I ask is simply this. Employers on the civilian side deals with that every single day. Every single day. And the civilian version of that goes something like this. I was responsible for designing and delivering training programs to improve team performance and ensure operational readiness. If you look at jobs, or when you see job posting that has change management in it, that's what this is. Just as an FYI. Change management is probably around systems implementation, meaning software implementation, ERP packages, so on and so forth, but it's change management. This included both technical and soft skills training, such as safety procedures, equipment handling, and team coordination, still in alignment, right? I monitored individual and team progress, extremely, extremely important, provided feedback and adjusted training strategies to meet evolving goals. I also maintain training records and ensuring compliance with organizational standards. Extremely important. We deal with that every single day. Here's another one we deal with every single day. Difficult conversations. In the military, it probably went something like this. And when I say probably went something like this, we pull data from individuals in the military as well as organizations in the military to get the military version, okay? I had to counsel a subordinate who was underperforming and creating tension within the unit. I followed the chain of command, documented the issues, and conducted a formal counseling session using the appropriate forms, HR. I maintained military bearing, addressed the behavior directly, and set clear expectations moving forward. The civilian version of that, I had to address a performance issue with a team member who was affecting morale. I have been in those positions numerous times, whether directly or with a client. I prepared by gathering specific examples and followed company protocols for performance discussions, HR, performance management. During our meeting, I stayed professional and respectful, clearly explained the concerns, and worked with them to set goals and expectations for improvement action plan. I also documented the conversion to ensure accountability and follow-up documentation. Again, these are just a handful of military functions, responsibilities that can be translated into civilian language and then tailored if you're looking for opportunities in that realm. Okay. So wanted to highlight that. Thoughts or questions before we move on? Because the next section of it, and I think Leslie, it probably aligns, and even you, Maria, it probably aligns with what you highlighted, right? Which is misconceptions, and more specifically, overcoming misconceptions. So let's talk about that for a few minutes. And I'm going to ask a rhetorical question. And the question is this: do you think some people have misconceptions about military experience and how it translates to civilian industries? Leslie, I think that's what you highlighted in your question to me, right? The answer is yes, probably, right?
I'm just going to say yes. The thing is, sometimes when you give examples, it just doesn't resonate with what they're doing, even though it's, I'll say, similar.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that not a lot of hiring people look for potential. Sometimes they're looking for an exact match. But that's a
True.
different story.
No, and you're right with that. You're 100% right. There are some positions that you will interview for or be interested in where the employer may say, hey, you know what? Even though I like what you bring to the table, I need an exact fit. Subject matter expert. That happens. Right? There's no misconception about that. That is the reality. But here's what I would say. That's just one out of several. Now it's easier said than done, but that's just one out of several. Okay. But that happens. You know, some of the misconceptions, and I guess let's do a quick poll here, because I'm interested in this one, right? So which of these, so we're going to put it up, do you feel is the most common misconception about military experience? Right? And the poll is going to get launched in a few seconds. Rigid leadership style, skills translation, overqualification, or underqualification. So when we were talking about this, here we go. It could very well be multiple or all of them, right? Rigid leadership style. Some believe veterans are too rigid or authoritarian due to their military training, which might not fit well in a collaborative civilian work environment. I would tell you right now, that's 100% misconception. Skills translation. Employers often struggle to understand how military skills translate to civilian job requirements, leading to undervaluation of veterans' experience. I heard that a few times from Maria, and I heard that from Leslie a few times. So I'm going to put an asterisk on that. Overqualification or underqualification. Veterans might be seen as either overqualified for entry-level positions or underqualified for higher roles due to lack of civilian work experience. I'm going to put an asterisk on that as well because I do want to come back to that. So let's talk a little bit more about if that is the case, how can we overcome that, right? So overcoming misconceptions. A big part of overcoming misconceptions is educating employers, and more specifically, educating civilian employers. Explain the relevance of military experience to the job to the best of your ability. Okay. Showcase adaptability. That is the second one. Highlight the ability to learn quickly and adapt to new environments. Provide context. Offer examples that illustrate how military skills translate to civilian roles. Essentially what I'm saying, and going back to the first poll that we did, I personally believe, because of my experience, that employers downplayed their knowledge on how military experience gets translated into civilian responsibilities. This is an opportunity, and this is specifically now when you're in the interview on how to help them overcome that misconception. You need to educate and help employers understand to the best of your ability, right? You need to showcase adaptability. I can't think of one company or one employer that would say, hey, I don't want someone on my team who can adapt to situations as they come up. I've never once heard that in 25 years of my experience. They look for that. We look for that. And then provide context around it. Okay. So let's look at, some examples on just the overcoming misconceptions, right? So if someone thinks, military experience seems rigid, Good way to counter is my military training has equipped me with the ability to adapt quickly and handle unexpected challenges. Every employer looks for that. And that could be part of your summary or your opening on your resume or introduction to the job if you're doing a cover letter and or a quick summary. You know, if someone thinks, you know, military roles are too specialized, and there are some that are specialized, yes, I get it. A good way to counter is my role required a broad skill set, including leadership, project management, and strategic planning. That's a great way to counter. Okay. So, you know, I want to keep here, if I can keep this slide up for a quick second, right? Because Leslie, I'm going to go back to what you initially asked a bit ago. And it's you know, those blank stares, right? And those blank stares are generally when you're interviewing for a job. These are misconceptions, right? Because we know that your experience can be translated into valuable, that's a valuable asset to civilian companies. I would bring this up and take it off the table as you're interviewing. So here's how I would bring it up. And typically, you know, during conversation, because remember I said conversational, or maybe at the end of the interview, when you ask for, are there areas from our conversation that is unclear, that maybe requires additional sorry, I may have been frozen there, that may require additional conversation, right? And if they say yes or no, if they say yes, ask them where, what area, and expand on it. If they say no, I think I'm all set. You also have an ability to say, you know, if it comes across that my military experience seems rigid, or if it comes across that my military experience is too specialized, you can counter with this or something close to, and say, hey, my military training has equipped me with the ability to adapt quickly and handle unexpected challenges. Is that a benefit to your organization? Closed-ended question, that's a yes or no. 100% of the time, they will say yes. If it's, you know, it's too specialized, or if you think your role is too specialized, or just, again, taking things off the table, help them meaning the civilian employer, helping them think outside the box, because we need help thinking outside the box, right? So if you think, Mr. or Mrs. Employer, that my military experience is too specialized, a good way to counter is my role required, and I understand, right? Acknowledge, I understand if you think my role or my experience is too specialized. It's okay to say to them, my role required a broad skill set, including leadership, project management, and strategic planning, and tell them why that's a benefit to you as a civilian employer. This is where it gets conversational, right? So if you think you're getting blank stares, where exactly are you having or getting the blank stare? Record that, right? Record that on a piece of paper, and then the next time you interview, take it off the table to the best of your ability. Control the conversation to the best of your ability. Make it work for you to the best of your ability, is what I would say, because it is a conversation. Does that make sense?
Makes complete sense, Rich. You know, it's it's you showcasing who you are during that interview, and a lot of times you can break that bias or misconception just by showing them that you're more relaxed, you're not rigid. You know, you're a person just the same as they are. And again, like I say, conversation. You must think of the interview as a conversation, not an interrogation. I stole that from Christy. Apologize, she had to leave, but you know, she's used that several times when we do interview prep with clients, and I constantly use that. I love the way she phrases that. Don't ever think of it like an interrogation, even though when you go in there, that's sort of what it feels like. Like, I have to answer all their questions. No, you don't have to answer all their questions. It's a back and forth. It's a conversation. You're there to ask them questions as well, based off of, the company that they are and who you're applying to, and information about the position that you may not be aware of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Look, I understand fully that, it's a job that you want, right? You look at it and you go in with that level of anxiety. I get it. We're all humans, right? They have something you want. But you have to make them believe that you have something they want, which is you. And it's how you control the narrative for the outcome you want. Again, it's easier said than done, right? It comes with preparation. It comes with translating the skills. It comes with tailoring your approach. It comes with having the conversation and educating them meaning us, right? And making us see, if we can't already see it, how valuable you are. I don't look at military vets as rigid. I look at military vets that can handle situations as they come up. That is a valuable experience, or skill set more specifically, that every employer needs. I get the perfect match, right? If you're not a tech person and the job is a tech job, you're probably not going to get it, right? I'm an accountant by nature. You know what they did to us when I went to school and for the CPA exams? They put us in a dark warehouse that was poorly lit, because they wanted to see if we can work through adverse situations, which is that cold, damp warehouse, and be able to assess. And in my mind, I was like, what the heck's going on here? What the heck's going on here, right? So I can safely say to you that employers out there needs to be educated if they're not aware of what you bring to the table. But I also want you to be prepared for, there are going to be positions that are very specific that you may not get. But the majority of positions that's out there, you have 100% of the transferable skills. You just need to practice and use it. And I am available, and we are at Robert Half available to help in any form. As a matter of fact, Brian, I think maybe you or Christy, you're going to send out resources that that individuals can use, right?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we're going to put together something, and we got a list of questions from our registrants, and unfortunately we're not going to get a chance to answer all those here. So as we put together this post-event package, so to speak, we're going to answer those questions as well. And we'll send it out to everybody, but there will be a list of resources included. So we'll be reaching out to you. And I just sort of want to do like a final caveat here off of that last section from what Rich was talking about. And just from our Hope team and what we see, and I'm sure from the Robert Half side, you see it as well. You get a lot of individuals that will tell you that they have fired off, hundreds of resumes, within the past month. And, the first question that comes to mind is, how many of those resumes have been different, tailored to the position that you applied for? And the answer should be almost every single one of them, because the job market is so competitive these days. It's utterly, I can't even stress the importance of matching almost word for word from the job description. No, you're not going to have everything, but when you've got 5 or 6 positions that are available within the company, and you've literally got, because of the internet nowadays, thousands and thousands of people applying to those positions. You want to stand out. You want to rise above the best, or you want to rise above and be the best. You know, those job postings are there for a reason, and that's the employer's needs. You want to show them on paper that you're meeting the employer's needs. That gets you the interview. Then when you get the interview, you can talk more and put yourself in that seat.
Mhm. I echo that 100%. 100%. So with that, that brings us to the end of, this workshop. Brian, I know we have 3 more workshops in the series, right, for the rest of the year. So I'm looking forward to that as well. And I would say, look, Brian and the Hope for the Warriors team, wherever we can help, however we can help, do not hesitate in reaching out to us. Okay? And I want to thank you again for putting this together and helping us behind the scenes. So thank you. And with that, everyone have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Really appreciate everything from Robert Half. You're Rich. Thank you so much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you.
Really
welcome.
appreciate you all.
Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.